Welcome to From the King's Pen. I'm Ardo Diaz, and I'm here to share with you a dose of learning, writing, speaking, and trying to live a little bit better day by day. So, here with me today, I have once more a guest from Twitter, because it seems like Twitter is where I meet all the interesting people. So, everyone listening to this, get on Twitter. That's where the interesting folk are, that's where innovation is happening. And he is someone quite interesting with a quite interesting set of passions, let's say. So, my guest today is Dave Torkington. He is a writer and former college athlete who is particularly interested in storytelling and philosophy and how that meets decentralized innovation such as NFT and crypto. Did I get that right, David?
Yes, Arthur.
So welcome to From the King's Pen. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
So, David, tell us, you're first and foremost a writer from what you say. Was
Yes.
that related to your major in college? That's how you got into it, or did you get into it after college and Twitter? How did your writing journey begin?
Well, I've been writing for about a decade and a half right now.
Okay.
I'm 24, but it started out with fan fiction. I was playing Pokemon. So I started out on internet forums and then progressed through high school just doing my own thing. Stephen King was a big influence on me. I, and I wrote fiction all the way through college, majored in English. I went to grad school for creative writing and then left. And that's where I've taken my writing interests since.
Oh, cool. So, a long journey. It's funny how things that become our professions or our aspirations sometimes come from our teenage years. Because now that you've mentioned that, and you mentioned specifically Pokemon, I, a translator, I actually, my first translations I ever did were for ROM hacks in Brazil, in forums. People would extract the text files and I would help translate. And I actually never
Wow.
made the connection till now that that was some of the first translation efforts I ever did. And then after that, only recently did I ever translate a game professionally. It was a game for a cell phone, a Viking game or something. But things do come around, it seems, from teenage years, and Pokemon seems to be a common thread for a lot of people.
Yes, I'd be within the NFT space specifically. I'm trying to find a Pokemon-esque game,
All
whether
right.
card game or video game. So let's see some innovation out there, huh?
Yeah, that's an idea. I gotta catch 'em all kind of vibe to an NFT space.
Mm.
So that's your other interest, and that's what I want to know before we get into how those interests mesh. How did you get into
Right.
crypto and NFT? What is that? Why should people care about NFT as well?
So I started in crypto about 2017, just dabbling in it during college, and I picked it up back again during the pandemic. Made some decent money, put it all in crypto, and through my experience with Dogecoin derivatives, I saw the parallel between meme coins and these generative 10,000 count NFTs for moon potential. Just got in just because. And I figure that once NFTs get through the birthing pains of um, all of the concern with social capital, that because we're trying to bind up for the first time really since way back in the days of tribal art and bartering, we're trying to bind together art and capital in an authentic manner. And we still have old world conceptions of social capital status and our neurotic attachments to them that are resulting in all these mindless generations of pseudo art. Once NFTs get through that and figure out how we want to apply it, art can begin to recapture its previous task of revealing the world to us our relationship to it, and how we can act given that insight.
Okay, just the way you ended that phrase there makes me see how you are connecting NFTs and philosophy and creativity and all of
Mm.
that. Why do you think that it can recapture that?
Well, for the past couple hundred, if not thousands of years, we've had a historical linear approach to consciousness. Take Willem Flusser for a spin there, Jean Baudrillard as well. Um, Things have not been tribal in the sense that we lost our immediate connection to art and the divinity it expresses. Higher realms, higher consciousness, higher selves. We're no longer in proximity to dance around it, exchange meaning based on it, find personal revelations. People used to paint cave drawings and of how to hunt animals. Um, the audience would look at them, learn from them, make rituals out of how to do it, teaching the young, and then they went out and hunt the animal. It's um, living based on the lessons taught in art. But then the state and the church state, in the instance of the Catholic Church in England, for example, came between art and culture, imposed a centralizing grand narrative between what was the divine realm, God, and us. And now that we're doing away with the centralization, moving towards decentralization, we are moving into a space able to reclaim our previous ability to interact directly with authentic art.
I see. So, do you see this basically as kind of like a phenomenon similar to what crowdfunding started to do, which is like basically
Mm.
disseminating the ways of sponsoring art, but taking it to a whole other level because it's entirely more decentralized?
Yes, I'd say crowdfunding and grassroots participation in things is one of the earliest current articulations of the same impulse to decentralization, because we're creating a splinter world aside from the centralizing one. And thanks to the internet and digital communication, we can do it location independent, which is our current approximation of what a tribe looks like.
Yeah, I feel that with the internet, it's easier to find your community in a way. Like, for example, we wound up in the same kind of Twitter space with in the same bubble with the same courses, same paid communities, and that creates essentially a tribe. The way the
Mm-hmm.
NFT projects are being structured, from what I've learned from you, they similarly tend to have that same effect. A bunch of people working together and minting the art and stuff. So that's your kind of your point of view then, that creates back that tribal idea and that separation idea, that decentralization.
Yeah, we're getting back to decentralized private communities based on membership, the NFTs as avatars, badges of admission. It's a fascinating thing. I hadn't even considered this months ago.
Yeah, now that you mentioned it, I hadn't considered that aspect, and that truly is something that takes it to another level. I've seen people on Twitter and on articles mentioning like how in a few years it could be conceivable that the internet will be populated by more avatars with NFTs than faces, and that does seem possible to me now.
Well, I think the distinction to be made there is how healthy each private community can be within itself. Whether it becomes a community that's well adjusted to um, having direct access to spiritual meaning, or it becomes a a fractal of the previous centralizing narrative we had, otherwise known as a cult, where the
Uh,
person who founded this NFT project or private community, it could be anything you find on Twitter, any paid Discord, any membership place, where the founder acts as a gatekeeper, and you're not allowed to spiritually progress and leave the tribe.
I see.
If you're allowed to do that and you can hop between communities as you see fit, then those are healthy communities contributing to the growth of healthy individuals.
That's a very interesting aspect to it because the way the modern world is structured, it's very difficult to have spiritual changes currently. It's you grow up in a church, it's hard to get out of it. If you usually do get out, you get out to become an atheist or simply not go. The spiritual journey has become sort of less exploratory, and again, the decentralization seems to go in the
Yeah,
opposite direction.
it's mostly because our ability to navigate our circumstances, from your example of only being able to leave the church, that's location dependent. You would have to find some other place geographically to go to. And in the public sphere of the public square of Twitter or Facebook, social media, that's kind of like the geographic world of the internet. It's a place of approved contexts that you have to inhabit by being a member of it. And now, with the springing up of circle communities, Discord groups, we finally have a time and space independent way to move around and assemble our identities. Finally, we can spiritually evolve as we see fit.
And the funny thing to me is the discords and these kinds of communities kind of remind me of the IRC chats that were very common way back in the early days of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And they seem like the enhanced versions of it, like the supercharged versions of it, where again, you are your avatar, you are known to a certain community, and if you hop onto another community, you might not necessarily be known. You're not an approved member. There's again this whole thing that was what created the internet in the first place. That was what made the internet what it was at first.
Mm. Yeah, when I was young, Pokemon introduced me to forums dedicated to discussing the card game and video game, and I became a moderator on those.
Oh, cool.
And um, if you tried to join a new one, you were just nothing.
Yeah.
Unless you picked the same username, you really had to start anew. And being as young as I was, that was quite a heartbreaker.
I can imagine. Even as adults, it's hard sometimes to leave a project and then start a new one or leave something behind. As a kid, it feels like you're leaving your life behind with something like that.
Yeah, not really knowing how social spaces work. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're interested in you see a space for writing with NFT or visual art or video, or what do you see this moving toward?
Well, the way I see NFTs, we've got a lot of quantity, not a lot of quality. Um, and the sleeper projects, the stuff that will achieve, let's say, organic momentum and become something valuable, some kind of gateway into the spiritual, those are going to need some kind of exposure, traction. And what better to communicate ideas across time and space, but messages, the written word. Um, you can do video messages and webinars, but you still need to write a script for them. So writing is a skill that you need to take seriously if you want to communicate projects of value that you've discovered and you think are underrated.
There you go. Yeah. Like Jordan Peterson says, writing is a skill that makes you unstoppable and
Dangerous.
dangerous. Exactly. And we're both big fans of Mr. Peterson. This is definitely a Jordan Peterson Stan channel, no question about it. Hail Lobster. And I can get that. The the word has this written word has a power that allows us to almost no to manipulate reality in a certain sense. They manipulate how we see things and how other people see things. So
Yeah. Like I said, it solves the problem of time and space that broke apart our tribal beginnings.
exactly, it reconnects to the roots and it brings forth whatever's new.
Hmm.
And that brings an interesting question. I know you also have an interest in copywriting,
Yes.
and do you also see that as a form of art, as a form of communication, as a tool? How do you see that?
Well, the way I see copy on one level is along the lines of science and automation, the mechanisms by which we communicate the spiritual. It's the
Oh,
science to the religion, science in the service of the transcendent. But on another level, copy involves storytelling, which you have to know fiction is art in a text format. And any story or anecdote or analogy told in copywriting has an emotional thread that you can recognize in fiction. It's just some short. And to the degree that there's an emotional thread in copy, I think that makes good copy, the same way it makes good art. So you could probably say that copy is art to the extent that it does its persuasive job, as in it emotionally moves people towards what you intend it to.
that's a good answer. Storytelling is pretty much what moves us. Uh, you can see that clearly in Joseph Campbell's monomyth and all the other ways that we are able
Mm-hmm.
to see the world through stories. We organize everything through narrative. That's the way our brains structure things. So whatever you're going to bring forth as a word that uses storytelling, that pulls on an emotional thread, is going to need that art of storytelling to bring it forth.
Yeah, we have written stories, and we also have the visual stories that, say, cave drawings did at one time, and now we have digital art able to do the same thing. It tells a very complicated, interwoven, and because of how the reader or the audience interacts with art, there's a dance between the two that allows for infinite possibilities of extracted meaning. So, endless stories to be told by symbols, symbolic art.
Well, and talking about visual, you can't forget what could be the cave painting of the 21st century, the art of memes. Memes are an incredibly powerful form of communication because you have a whole cultural understanding behind most of them. You have where they came from, what do they mean, what was their original context. It's a very, in a way, sophisticated manner of like putting a lot of content into one single image, something simple that if you're part of a certain tribe or part of a certain group, you're going to recognize immediately.
Yes, but while these ideograms, these tablets of subjective meaning, like predetermined meaning, they're not complete analogs to symbolic art from cave drawings because symbolic art, as it was conceived of initially, was boundless. It had no predetermined objective. But when it comes to memes, condensing information with an end, the same way propaganda works for centralizing nationalist countries, um, memes have finite interpretations.
True.
And we're trying to get away from that tendency to centralize and package meaning a priori.
I see. I see. So it's really drifting away from closing off meanings and gearing more to open possibilities.
Yes, possibility is the name of the game here.
All right. So, what would you recommend to someone who's just getting interested in NFTs? How does someone dive into that world?
Well, right now it does have a price barrier. Ethereum being the main blockchain for it, but Solana, Phantom, Cardano are all developing NFT ecosystems that do lower on the gas fees, though their tokens are climbing. So wait for a pullback, buy the dip. And
anyone who's ever dealt with crypto is going to understand very well that the buy the dip idea.
Yep, I feel ashamed to have used a meme in itself right there.
Well, you've already mentioned to the moon earlier in the conversation, so that's your second strike.
Shame.
No shame in that. No shame in that. They do communicate what is intended very well for this audience, for the crypto space.
Yep. We'll teach you eventually how to break that habit. It's gonna be, like I said, a process filled with birthing pains.
Well, it's also the fact that it's the first time in I don't know how long that you actually have a truly new class of assets, right? With NFTs, there's something in themselves that's something that mankind hasn't seen for a while. So there's gonna be some birthing pains there for sure.
Yeah, this is us just bootstrapping all of our know-how from Web 2 into Web 3, as they call it. Figuring out how we can apply coding, art, fuse them together, bind capital inside of it. And in order to navigate this sphere, you're going to have to really watch your step in the beginning. Some people just have the funds to take advantage of it, capitalize on it willy-nilly. And through that experience, they start to figure out what NFTs are about in regards to meaning. This is how I figured it out and still am. But other times, if you don't have the funds, do as much research as you can. Due diligence is recommended in the stock game for a reason, and due diligence should apply to pretty much every facet of existence right now, because we're in such a transformative time with values and prices, values meaning too, fluctuating. You have to be ready and willing to call your own shots when it comes to where you invest both your energy and your capital.
Your capital is also a store of your energy you traded for prior services. So it is really important to focus on that, and like you said, do the due diligence, because
DYOR, do your own research.
Because as you mentioned, with gas prices, which are basically the cost you have with each transaction, you can lose a lot of money just playing around with that and getting in and out of trades or something, right? You can get yourself in deep just doing that.
Yes, and the more the losses stack up, you're going to make emotional buys and sells, panic sells, and suddenly you wonder where all of your investment, both mentally and in capital, went. And that's what makes people get out of the NFT space. There was a statistic that 98% of stock traders just lost money before they exited.
Oh, wow.
And I have no reason to doubt that more or less applies to crypto and NFTs right now. So,
word of caution there. None of this is financial advice. Do your own research. Contact a professional if you need to. But it is an interesting space, and it is an interesting era of innovation, because it's something that wasn't even possible a short while ago, and now it's like you said, we're exploring the potential of art and code brought together. So this brings up a whole new world of art, a whole new world of possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
I have hopes that, in the sense that some of the best art mankind saw was when patronage was very common and people investing in art as a form of capital was very common. And this could fuel an artistic revolution like that again. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, patronage is the crowdfunding we talked about earlier in this video. We're just doing that in a time and space independent manner.
Yeah.
Straight from the salons of Paris right into the Discord groups.
Would you look at that? And it's interesting to realize because some of the great art was local, very local. Uh, Bach, one of the greatest composers of all time, was a local church composer at first, and so and became the most cited name in music and the influence of centuries. And again, we bringing this decentralized as a way to, I see it for example, to escape massive pop tendencies that have a cookie cutter format. The recording industry will continue to follow a cookie cutter format. Crowdfunding started to break from that a little, and with more decentralization comes the possibility for more experimentation, more outside the box stuff.
Yes, entirely separate realities. Each community is essentially its own reality at this moment because there's a separate value hierarchy within each one and separate permissions granted to anybody who wishes to become a member at their own identity risk.
Cool. And are you working on any projects related to that which you're writing yet? Are you gearing towards that area? What are your interests in writing right now?
Well, I'm working on a novel that deals with the concept of decentralization. Um, I'm undecided whether the degree to which it's going to be allegory, but we'll see as it takes shape. It's coming along pretty healthily.
Okay.
And I also intend to write short form content, threads, and essays on this topic and how and why we can navigate it.
Okay. So more content on the relation between art and spirituality and NFTs. I'm hoping, at least.
Yes. How can all of this new innovation still service the wisdom of ages?
That is pretty cool. Because a man's spirit flourishes on innovation. Like you see, great men come from great travels, from the great challenges, and whenever there's a new frontier, you see both spiritually and mentally, in a more material sense, more physical sense, you see people thrive, and it's exciting to see that.
Very.
And exciting to have a friend in exploring those new frontiers.
Likewise.
So, David, where can people find you?
Right now, you can find me on Twitter at the David Meta, METTA, and you'll also be able to find me on Substack at davidmeta.substack.com.
Okay, I'll add the links to the description so people can find you and learn along with you about NFT, writing, art, and all of that. And I like to know, what is as your final thought, what is your biggest hope for this NFT space? What do you wish to see in the next 3 to 5 years? Where do you want to see it go?
In the next 3 to 5 years, I think we're going to be very concerned with ironing out all of the applications of what we can do with all this newfound freedom now that we can reclaim it from centralizing empires. We're going to have to deal with our own identities a new patchwork construction of ourselves as we take scraps from everything that existed before, weigh it personally, and try to incorporate it into our own highest selves, governed by what drives us, but how it is presented in our relationships to others, it's going to be very ad hoc. With NFTs, it's an opportunity to do so, cultivate our relationships in the digital space. Now that we have newfound proximity to art that we've been missing for several thousands of years, we have to iron out what that looks like and what we're going to gain from it and how we're going to go about that. I'm very optimistic where we can go because everybody now has so much incentive, so much invested in the cultivation of innovative meaning itself, producing good art, good writing, good tech. Progress has been written in our DNA, and now we have emotional investment in the very process. And that is inspiring.
I agree. This whole conversation has been like a huge white pill to me after a week of, less than good news in the political space. So this feels like a huge white pill, and I couldn't agree more. I posted on Twitter recently that mankind has been through pandemics, wars, industrial revolutions. The only thing that never changes about mankind is that we need creators, we need creation. That's the one thing that keeps driving human progress. That's exactly as you said, that's in our DNA. And seeing new possibilities for that is indeed inspiring and exciting. So I agree 100% there. It makes me feel optimistic for the future, for new possibilities of freedom.
That's going to be the name of the game, inspiring people in
That's
this
great.
way.
That's great. David, thank you very much for joining me. It was a pleasure talking to you. I feel I learned a lot on this conversation, and I hope people who are watching this will too. So thank you very much for joining.
Thank you for having me, Arthur. It's been a pleasure.
And I will see you all next time with more doses of insights of learning, speaking, writing, and living a little bit better day by day from the King's Band.
Sitting in the highest tower on a castle made of sand, watching the pieces all fall down. I don't own a throne, no, I don't even own a crown. I just sit and I watch it all fall down. Sitting here, it gives me the time to take the time and make the time to pick the pieces from my mind.